When I was younger, my parents often worried about me being abducted or that I'd get lost, so they would constantly keep me close to their side. As I got older, this protective instinct subsided as it was less likely for this to happen, and I was able to take care of myself more. This, unfortunately, is not an option for Indigenous women. There is a constant fear for Indigenous women of being kidnapped or getting murdered. This continues throughout their life. From the first settler to come to Canada, which was called Turtle Island at that time, to the people living here today, society often treats Indigenous people inferior. Indigenous women have one of the highest missing and murdered statistics across Canada, leaving both women and their families wary of their surroundings at all times. When an Indigenous woman goes missing, it also leaves her friends and family with immense pain and a feeling of emptiness. I would like to ask you to put yourself in their position. What would you do if someone you were close to went missing? This is a feeling that often reoccurs in the Indigenous community. These are the families that have to go through sorrow after their loved ones have been taken from them. According to Brand, there is an ongoing battle between Indigenous people and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, along with others involved. There is a debate over the amount of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls because the incidents are grossly underreported, leaving people uneducated. The lost numbers are also a result of biased court cases that have been unsolved or forgotten. In 2017, it was reported that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police stated that there were 1,200 missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada, while an Indigenous women's group claimed that there were well over 4,000. Obviously, this topic is frequently overlooked and forgotten. As a representation, Highway 16 in British Columbia is often referred to as the Highway of Tears. Due to its high rate of murders and disappearances of women, especially those in the Indigenous community, usually when a person goes missing, an Amber Alert is broadcast across all media platforms in range of the incident. But when it comes to Indigenous women, this isn't always the case. Indigenous cases of missing or murdered women are not taken as seriously compared to as when a white female goes missing. An example of this is when a serial killer named John Martin targeted Indigenous women in Saskatoon, but the issue was not talked about anywhere. The newspaper outlets claimed that the issue was uninteresting and it was a small town, so no one would care. According to the website Media Smarts, when an issue surrounding Indigenous women was in the news, the headlines would be impersonal and lack the woman's name or personal pronouns, as opposed to using both for white women. Indigenous women obviously were not as important or cared about, and although the awareness has gotten better, it is still insufficient to some. Past the lack of media coverage, there are some organizations attempting to bring awareness to the issue of murdered and missing Indigenous women in other ways. There are projects, associations, and charities, and more that are created in hopes to bring more attention to this topic. The first topic that I'm going to talk about is called the Red Dress Project by Jamie Black. The objective is to collect around 600 red dresses from Canadians that will be placed around Canada, mainly Manitoba, in representation of those Indigenous women who have disappeared in hopes to bring awareness. These are some examples of the red dresses that are placed across Canada. Aside from the Red Dress Project, the government has also started a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The purpose of this inquiry is to investigate and report on issues that these women have to go through, so the government can try to prevent it. This inquiry is to acknowledge all past and present incidents and try to build strength and power through Indigenous women's undervalued lives. This is the sign for the national inquiry, and this is Justin Trudeau, who's also involved with the inquiry. Additionally, they are providing counseling, support, and other aftercare help. Justin Trudeau also publicly thanked all of the Indigenous people, as well as everyone involved with the inquiry, including all hearing events and stands. He also promised they would all work together towards ending violence towards Indigenous women. Finally, the last organization I am going to talk about is the Native Women's Association of Canada. Their goal is similar to the National Inquiry, with hopes to end violence towards Indigenous women and girls, especially focusing on the incidents that lead them to go missing or get murdered. This organization also looks to provide funding for aftercare healing and support to build the victim's strength and courage. This is their logo, and it's very well known across Canada. All of these organizations are interested in finding different ways to help in order to achieve the same goal, which is ending violence and bringing awareness towards Indigenous females. It is very evident that the Indigenous community needs help in bringing more awareness and protection of the women and girls. Things seem to be improving, but there is still a long way to go to bring their standard of safety and peace of mind to where it needs to be. I hope that you can walk out of here today with more of an understanding and awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women. I hope that you were able to put yourself in their shoes, even for just a second, and realize the pain and suffering that every Indigenous person has to go through, one way or another. It is through awareness and empathy that we can make a difference. This is a serious topic that deserves to gain more love and respect, and eventually lead to a better solution. Thank you for listening.